It's a cold night in Burlington County, New Jersey, round about midnight. You take your car down an otherwise unassuming rural road, lined by trees and dense woods on either side. You are alone, isolated, but very curious. After you stop your car, you notice it's eerily quiet. You doubt that anyone has visited this road in a long time and that perhaps you shouldn't be here. You persist. Instead, you reach behind your wheel and flash your lights, as if you were sending an undercover signal to someone. As you do this, you roll down your window and poke your head through. No one's there, but you still have something to say. Pig lady, you yell incessantly. This series of odd steps goes on for just a moment, and then you stop. It's quiet again. During this bout of awkward silence, you likely cringe at the ritual you just performed, believing you wasted your time. It's silent until it's not anymore. When you think you're alone, she's standing right in front of you. For generations now, the chilling legend of the New Jersey Pig Lady has sparked a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity from those who know of her. But just like paranormal tales, her exact origin lies in a mysterious gray area. These stories we will cover, but regardless of where you believe she came from, those who claim to have seen her share a general consensus. She holds an axe, and she's ready to kill you. When we think of popular characters in paranormal lore, the Mothman, Duende, or Sasquatch, we don't usually associate them with directly harming those who witness them. At best, Sasquatch would throw rocks at you because it was afraid, the Mothman only flying over to warn others of impending tragedy. However, some of these creatures of legend supposedly do intend to bring direct harm. Think of the Jersey Devil. And while we're on the topic of Jersey, we find that he's not alone. According to long-standing legend, a horrifying-looking woman donning the head of a pig is haunting a lonely road in Hillsborough called Roycefield Road, aptly nicknamed Pig Lady Road. Her origins are often disputed, but each story carries a common sentiment. Those origins were not good. More on that in a moment. There isn't much in the ways of complexity surrounding the Pig Lady's actions, other than she wants to be left alone. Yet, over the years, people continue to challenge her, arriving at the stroke of midnight to test if she really does appear with her axe, ready to hack away at whoever summoned her. A popular chronicle it may be, but there is actually a sad side to the Pig Lady of New Jersey. She's also known to appear to visitors from the woods, not charging an attack, but rather sobbing, ashamed of the way she looks, eternally mournful of her condition. According to a few legends, she is in fact a tragic figure, but also capable of rage. There are a few rituals curious seekers have tried, but the most popular version only requires the driver to arrive at midnight, turn off their car, and flash the headlights 3 times. Then call out, Pig Lady. Had you succeeded, the results would have been apparent when the pig-headed woman appeared out of the adjacent woods, charging after you with her axe. Did that work? No? Well, there is another way to grab her attention. It requires more than one person, though. Let's say you decide to visit Pig Lady Road with a group of friends to try this next method. Unfortunately, said method requires a member of the group to take one for the team. Instead of just following the procedure of flashing your lights and beckoning the Pig Lady, someone in the group must exit the car immediately. After a while, The car carrying everyone else turns and drives away for approximately 10 minutes, leaving the individual all alone in the darkness. After 10 minutes, the car comes back around again, hoping that the odd man out had an encounter with the lady. One of these occurrences details a group of friends who did the exact same thing, leaving one of the girls behind as the rest drove away. When the friends came back, they couldn't find her. Later, they found her at some point during the search, hiding in some nearby bushes. Apart from looking completely traumatized, she was also covered in scratches. While she was alone, the pig lady leapt from the woods, chasing her down and assaulting her, luckily without the axe. A member of this group recalled that she had moved from the area a year later. The New Jersey pig lady's story is shrouded in mystery and sadness. One rumor chronicles the story of a Hillsborough woman in the 1900s who was born with an unfortunate condition that made her face resemble that of a pig. When she was young, other children picked on her relentlessly for her abnormal appearance, enduring torture for something she couldn't control. When it came time for her to live on her own, the woman moved to a farm, far away from where people could bother her. Unfortunately, this peace was shattered one day. While tending to her garden, a group of 3 teenage boys happened to pass her, instantly taking notice of her face. The boys were merciless towards the woman, hurling insults and jeering at her plight. As if this weren't already enough, one of the boys took things further by promising to return to her home to place a decapitated pig's head on her front doorstep, only to add insult to injury. The boys intended to keep their promise, as they actually did return with said pig's head. That was the last night they were seen alive. Years later, when Hillsborough became more populated, the bones of the same teenagers were found somewhere on the property. The next story attaches more details to the unfortunate woman, but under completely different circumstances. Adjacent to what would become Pig Lady Road was once the property of wealthy tobacco heiress Doris Duke. This version follows a maid who works for the family. One day, a massive fire broke out on the property while the maid was upstairs. As the Duke family rushed out of the house, they left the maid behind to perish. In the blaze, the woman ended up falling from the second floor of the house, causing her face to be horribly disfigured. Realizing her appearance was beyond repair, she decided to drop everything and live life as a hermit in the woods. A more traditional legend claims that a woman was murdered by her husband when he came home one day, decapitating her with an axe. When the police arrived, her body was found, but not her head. This is supposedly why she attacks those who are brave enough to trespass on her domain to steal a new head to replace her old one. Someone had also relayed a story of a girl born so disfigured that her father chopped off the head of a pig and placed it over hers. It's unknown if this relates to the first story. It's easy to discount these kinds of stories. Local legends like these are naturally taken with a grain of salt, especially since they are word of mouth and nothing more. However, real or not, there is one story backed by truth and record, one that occurred in Hillsborough back in the 1920s. It may not be as dramatic as previous tales, but it did involve a murder, and it did involve a pig lady. Somerset County, New Jersey, 1922. The bodies of Reverend Edward Hall and Mrs. Eleanor Reinhardt Mills were found together in a local lover's lane. Both had been shot in the head, their bodies strategically placed next to one another. Edward was determined to have been shot while in the kneeling position, and Eleanor's tongue had apparently been ripped out. Littered around their corpses were a series of papers. Papers that had turned out to be love letters Eleanor Mills had been sending to the Reverend. A crime of passion had taken place, and with Edward Hall being a religious leader, a media storm would soon follow. Suspicion lay on the Reverend's widow, Frances Hall, and her brothers, James and Thomas. The motive is supposedly out of jealousy and humiliation from the affair. This crime's notoriety spread far and wide, earning the badge, Crime of the Century. There were some eyewitness reports by folks local to the scene, but a rather unlikely spectator made herself known to the prosecution. Someone who had seen the whole thing, Miss Jane Gibson, a nearby resident, claimed that she had witnessed the murder in its entirety. Jane would play the most interesting role in the Hall Mills trial. Living life as a pig farmer, the public would soon deem her the Pig Lady. In her testimony, she says she was out that fateful night with her horse Jenny while she was tending to her animals. She said that during her patrol, she witnessed Frances and her brothers carry out the grisly murder. As if the virality of the case couldn't get any wider, it simply became more sensationalized. People flocked to the courthouse in droves. Collectors hustled to the crime scene in hopes of grabbing valuables related to the victims, probably ruining chances for potential new evidence. The defense immediately called Jane a liar, but she stood her ground. Another interesting fact about Jane: she was currently suffering the progressive effects of cancer at the time, sticking to her story and attending trials while still in her hospital bed, carried there every day by an ambulance. These tireless efforts by Jane did not hold up in the long run, though. Despite her detailed story, it remained on shaky ground and was laden with inconsistencies. An article on the matter claimed that even Jane's mother called her a liar under her breath. At the end of the trial, the Reverend's widow, Mrs. Hall, and her brothers were found not guilty. Jane Gibson, aka the Pig Lady, succumbed to her illness not long after. In regards to the legend of the axe-wielding Pig Lady, the Jane Gibson story doesn't provide much of a reason for this malevolent entity to be some violent creature with a thirst for blood. Jane was part of a crime media sensation and clearly in no state to take part in the murders themselves. So it's a mystery as to how she became connected to the legend. That being said, the more fanciful Pig Lady tale takes place just a few miles away from Gibson's residence. Does that detail make it too convenient for both stories not to be connected? A theory that crossed our minds was that perhaps this Pig Lady was a myth that combined different aspects of the murder case, one being the memorable character that was Jane Gibson, and the potentially murderous nature of Frances Hall, creating a physical representation of the events that took place in 1922. But what do you think? So, who is she? Is the Pig Lady of New Jersey a real creature or a paranormal force with a thirst to kill? Maybe a tragic victim of injustice whose vengeful spirit refuses to move on? And more importantly, are any of the stories of those who visited Roycefield Road true? How many of you have attempted to summon the Pig Lady yourselves? Let us know your experiences.